Do you ever wish you could go back in time a couple of years and, like, punch yourself in the face? Hello there everybody, Dasher again with yet another Devlog video for Disharmony. I hope you've all had a good summer. Mine was quite good, and, well, autumn so far isn't very different, because I actually graduated a few months back. And for the first time since, well, around the Kickstarter campaign, I guess, I've actually kind of been taking a break from game development for a while. That's not to say I haven't worked on it, I worked on it quite a bit, and I started working on it, I guess, quote-unquote, full-time as of about 2 months ago. I spent a large chunk of both May and June preparing for school stuff and finishing up schoolwork and everything, trying to stay sane, you know, the usual. But here I am, working on the game as my job, I guess? I mean, I guess I'm kind of unemployed, but this is the closest thing I've got to a job right now.
Okay, get a job.
Something that's been almost entirely upgraded since the last time I made a devlog video is my computer setup. You've seen glimpses of my setup in previous devlog videos, and it was absolutely terrible. It was abysmal. It was not fun to use. Now I'm actually using a proper desk. I have a new 1440p monitor, and it's not terrible anymore. I don't have to sprain my neck looking up at the TV mounted on the wall. I also got a new boom arm for my microphone, which is way better than just having it lay on the desk, which is what I've done for, I don't know, 2.5 years now? So that's cool. This is far nicer. Now, finishing up schoolwork hasn't been the only reason as to why I haven't been able to work as much on the game. Another big part of it is that I have been waiting for the release of Game Maker Studio 2.3.0 for a long time. Well, I did. It's out now, thankfully. The reason being is that it advertised a lot of features that I thought would be very useful for my game, and I didn't want to have to sit and work with inferior tools for hours on end, when I could have had a way easier time just waiting a little longer. But like I said, it's out now, so hooray! I did try to use the beta, but I ran into a lot of bugs, and it just did not go well. The main major thing that's been added that made me wait for it is the new sequence system, which makes things like creating cutscenes far easier than it was before. And I will show some sequences later on in the video. So, you know, let's just fire it up and take a look. Wait, blank ID reference found. Could be that the project is corrupt? Uh-oh. So I've tried to look into this, and, I'm getting mixed results. I have been backing up the project regularly, so this shouldn't be that big of a deal, knock on wood, but that does have me quite worried. I read online that people have reported this as a bug, and Yo-Yo Games has acknowledged this error, and I assume they will be addressing it in the next update, but it's not out yet. I'll definitely be careful moving forward. I should stress that there is nothing wrong with the project from what I can see. Everything is working totally fine. Again, intensely knocking on wood. I don't want to jinx myself. Duh. But yeah, so far it's working out okay. I would show you the big cutscene I'm working on using sequences, but it's very spoilery, and so yeah, that won't be happening, sorry. Just know that it does exist, and I think it looks pretty cool. What I can show you, however, is some of this. I won't give you the context, because spoilers again, but hey, it's there. It sure is. So when I recorded this, I forgot to mention that this took forever to implement. Making a sequence run is very easy. Being able to pause it mid-sequence, not so much. I've been working on a lot of visual stuff lately. For example, I've added this neat little idle animation for Roxanne at the start of the game. I kinda got sick of just staring at her not doing anything past the first cutscene, and I think this is a neat way to spice it up a little. I've also drawn some concept sketches for some of the later parts of Aralon. District 1 is basically done, but I'm still kind of planning out what District 2 and 3 will look like. These sketches aren't particularly good. They don't really take things like perspective into account, so they don't look amazing. but you kind of get the idea of what I'm going for. The aesthetic, even though it isn't finished, is largely inspired by the Yakuza Metro DLC for A Hat in Time, the game Valhalla, and B&A, the Studio Trigger anime. I love that kind of neon, sort of futuristic aesthetic. It looks really neat. I also purchased a new drawing program, Sprite to be more specific, a rather well-known pixel art program. My first drawing/animations were very simple test things. At first I just made a quick little sprite sheet for a character of mine for an unrelated side project. I also made a quick little animation, kind of, featuring Kirby. And then I went in and did some stuff for the game. Here are some sprites of seagulls related to a side quest. It might not make a lot of sense out of context, but I'm sure it will when you actually play the game. Maybe. Maybe not, I'm not sure. They look pretty good though, at least in my opinion. And while I won't be showing much of this, here's a sneak peek at something else I've been working on. This is the character Ellie, drawn in the style of Castlevania and top-down Game Boy Adventure games/RPGs. Related to which is this drawing I made of Ellie, in a more visual novel kind of style. It's inspired primarily by games like Hayter and maybe a bit of Danganronpa. It's definitely more on the experimental side. My art style is usually very sort of cutesy and bubbly, and this one is far more angular and squarish, but I kind of like the result. It's also drawn at a far lower resolution than I'm used to, which made it into a bit of an extra large challenge, I suppose. Besides this, by far the most time-consuming thing I've been doing is reworking the game's battle system. I may have alluded to this in the past, but the previous version of the battle system was horrible. I don't mean that from a gameplay perspective. It worked okay for the purpose of, you know, the tutorial fight and everything, but the stuff that was under the hood was terrible. Some of the worst code I've ever written. None of it was commented, a lot of it were just if-else chains, the variable names were horrible, entire timelines and objects were completely unnecessary, they could have been replaced by alarms, and the code could have been implemented into one or two objects. Ugh, yeah, this was not fun to work with, so I just decided to redo the whole thing. So I've been reworking the battle system for, almost an hour, like 50 minutes or so, 45. And, see, this is way better than it was before. The reason I'm doing this in the first place is because I realized not too long ago that the thing holding me back the most with progress and such is not my inability to code or anything. The actual, like, bottleneck is how awful my old code is. Because I've improved a lot over the past, like, what, 2 years since I started actively developing this build of the game. And yeah, see, this is what it looks like currently. And everything is nice and commented and looks great. You've got the script here, which has a bunch of stuff. Ooh, there it is, yeah. So here's that. Whoa, and it's a huge list of things. Let's go. And then I'm just setting the enemy's stats. No, wait, sorry. To be the same as the type of enemy it is and stuff. Yeah, woohoo. Everything is nice and commented. I've got some regions, so that stuff is readable. I've made sure to include some things that I can use in the future that I haven't used for this specific enemy. You know, thinking ahead a bit, which I did not do back when I started working on this. I've got pretty concise, easy, simple code. It's not amazing, I'm still working on it, but it's mostly functional so far. I think I haven't actually tested it quite yet. But basically I've been making it a whole lot better than it was before. This is currently what I'm working on. But this is mostly fine now, right? It's 42 lines of code there, it's 6 lines of code there, and it's 64 lines of code? Yeah, 64 lines of code. So it's pretty concise, whereas before it was way longer and it had way less substance and a lot of useless variables, and it was just awful. Yes, thank you again, Windows. Then I went ahead and looked at this object. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Now, see, here's the thing though, I don't even know what any of this does, because none of it is commented. Oh my god. So if any of you are just getting into coding or whatever, or if you've been coding for a while and you've just forgotten, remember to comment your code, because you will not remember what the variable fight does like 2 years after you program it. Please. Just, oh my god. This is awful. And I'm the one who's gonna have to deal with it now. I haven't even looked at all the other parts. Oh, look at that. That's so bad. Oh, help me. Oh no. And again, this code is fully functional. It's totally functional. It's what I've been using up to this point. And I have been able to implement other enemies and such, like you can see in the Kickstarter trailer. Oh god, that's loud. Here, see, there's a glimpse of another enemy, but I didn't actually show any footage of it. That was because I hadn't finished implementing the enemy at that point. It's also pretty bad because the sprite is like cut off at the top, and yeah. But yeah, it's the reason why this took so long to implement, and why I haven't implemented a lot of other enemies. Oh my god, I've even messed up the laces. Oh no. Well, yeah, the reason for that is because this is the code I'm working with. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. You can even see in the new code that I've been leaving things like, oh yeah, I should change this to a switch statement once I've added more types, so that it will be easier to write, easier to read, and more efficient. Again, thinking ahead, like, hey, don't forget to do this. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep working on this now, I guess. Wish me luck. Do you ever wish you could go back in time a couple of years and, like, punch yourself in the face? I wish I could do that. Why did I make that a timeline? Why did I make that a timeline? It's 360 frames, I might as well just make it an alarm. Why did I not make it an alarm? Why did I make it... See, my problem here is, it's not even necessary for it to be its own object. Because the only reason I made it a separate object is because an object can only run one timeline at a time, but you can run several alarms. There's only one thing happening. Why did I do this? I've barely even scratched the surface. I'm gonna have to stop recording and just do this anyway because this is stressing me out. I wanted to make another Yandere Dev joke, but maybe that would be a bit excessive after the previous episode. Now, the actual reworking of it wasn't that bad. It was just very overwhelming because there was a lot of code to deal with. The big problem had to do with the way I implemented the stats of the enemy. See, when I programmed the battle system initially, I only had a couple enemies in mind, and I thought, oh, this won't be too hard to change. Except, you know what, a year and a half after you've written some code, you probably forget what large chunks of it actually, you know, does. And when you don't comment that code, it becomes very hard to customize. So this time, instead of just having an enemy like the bad apple in behind, I kept thinking of ways to make this as easy as possible for me to modify in the future. So instead of storing all the variables inside the object itself, I have a separate script with all of the stats for all the different kinds of enemies. The script contains arrays, basically lists of variables, that have all the information related to the enemy in question. So for example, I have an array called bad apple stats. The enemy object itself has an array called enemy stats. And what I wanted to do was just change the enemy type and the creation code of each instance of the enemy object, and then have it detect the enemy type and copy the relevant array from the stats script and overwrite its existing stats. So basically, if enemy type equals bad apple, copy the bad apple stats to the current enemy stats. And I could not get this to work. I'd like to give a huge thank you to all the people over on the Yo-Yo Games forums who gave me suggestions on how to solve the issue. What I ended up doing was use a bit of a workaround, but I still got to keep the majority of my code. It's still very easy to modify, but just in case I forget how to use it, I have made a short tutorial for myself telling me how to modify each enemy. I also added comments to nearly every line of code, so that's always good. And hey, what do you know? The battle system's done, and it's a million times better than before. With a couple things left to fix. Yeah, so this is recorded like 2 weeks after the rest of the audio, but I was basically ready to wrap up the video, but then I realized I forgot to mention that I wrote a bunch of songs, and I worked on a bunch of sound effects, and yeah, there was a whole lot of stuff. I would also have added some more Halloween-themed stuff considering the date. Could have had the second Halloween special, I guess, but sadly I didn't plan it out well enough, and it took a long time to edit this, and yeah, sorry. Here's some footage where I basically rearranged Ashley's theme for the kind of music box thing earlier with the weird spinning ballerina cutouts. I took this song that Chris wrote forever ago, I exported it as MIDI and put it into FL Studio, removed a bunch of tracks, changed the instrument, changed the mix, and randomly sort of sped it up and slowed it down to make it all creepy and weird. Yeah. Also, I should probably mention that the next Devlog video is probably going to be rather experimental, but I think it's going to be good, so hang around for that, stick around. Yeah, now for the outro. And yeah, there you have it, that's the majority of what I've been working on. There is, of course, more stuff I could talk about, but I don't want to spoil the whole game. So, yeah, long wait, maybe a bit of a shorter video. But that's fine. I think in the future I'll try to have my videos be more focused, so maybe I'll only focus on 1 or 2 aspects of the game for like a week or 2, and then I'll make a video about what I've been doing, and then upload that, which feels like a better way of structuring a devlog than just make a million different things and then throw them all into a video. But hey, we'll see how that goes. And I know I said I'll be uploading the videos once they're done, but I will be trying to upload more frequently than, 4 months at a time, because that's, maybe a little bit excessive. And on a different note, we're almost at 30 subscribers, so that's pretty neat. And the total channel views are almost at 1,000, so thank you so much to everyone who's been watching the videos. I know I don't upload too often, but a lot of time and effort does go into making these videos. Not only does it take a while to record these lines, but recording gameplay footage and editing and rendering and everything takes quite a while as well. And I've started doing custom thumbnails as well, so yeah, again, a lot of time going into this stuff. I hope it's appreciated by someone out there. And yeah, there we are. Thank you ever so much for watching, and as always, have a good day.